Hello True Believer, and welcome back to Criterion C for your Scratch game. So I'm going to cover all the things that you need to know for when you're developing your actual game, and this is the step-by-step plan that you need to understand. So these are the ratings that you need to get: a 1 to 2, a 3 to 4, 3 here, a 5 to 6, sorry, and then a 7 and an 8 up the end. So we're going to focus obviously on the back end here again of what you need to do to get a 7 and 8. So the 4 separate strands go as follows. So strand 1 means that you can construct a logical plan that is well organized and sufficient for peers to be able to follow to create the game. Written expression is of a high standard with exceptional references to resources and time. Now this is critical, so it needs to be very step by step how to build your game from scratch. Okay, and it needs to be good enough, the plan that you write, that you hand it to someone else and they can reproduce exactly the same game that you produced. Strand 2 then is a complete game with all the critical elements required and demonstrates excellent use of the 3 foundational programming structures, which is sequential statements, conditional statements, and iterative statements. Okay, so this is basically how well do you actually program inside of your game. Strand 3 is how well do you follow the plan to create the exceptional game, which functions as intended and shows exceptional detail to work and overall accuracy. So how well does your game actually function after you've produced it? And then strand 4 explains any of the changes to the design and plan while developing the code. So any changes to the design is the design that you've written as you did in Criterion B, whereas the changes to the plan is as you're building the product, if you find any issues as you're going, what do you do and how do you fix it? So we want to see your struggle and then how do you resolve the issues. Okay, so the logical plan is pretty straightforward. It's just step by step, and then we need to have a look at some of the different things that you need to understand. So just to reiterate with the 3 fundamental structures when coding, which we should know by now, this is a general sort of loop that has been built inside the game. So there's a score variable, and then forever we change the Y position of the character of the sprite that we're doing, and if it touches the paddle, set Y to this value here, and then set X to a random position here. So I'm guessing this is a ball that's bouncing. If it touches the paddle, it then increments the score by 0, right? If it doesn't touch it, it doesn't do any of this code inside of here. And then if it the position is less than 100, negative 150, as if the ball has hit the bottom of the screen, it says game over, and then it stops the whole loop. So the 3 fundamental structures inside of here is the sequential statement or the flow of statements. So which way did this go? So you should be understanding now that the forever loop will go on forever, and then it's basically checking this. So if this happens, it will execute this bit of code. If this happens, it will execute this bit of code and then loop back in. This bit of code will always be executed because this is within the forever until that stop all has been activated. A selection statement is the conditional statement, so the if here, you might have also seen the if or then the else statements, and then the iterative statements are the loops, so things that make it go on and on and on forever. Okay, so those are the 3 fundamental, and your program or your game needs to have a good variety of all these throughout for it to be functional. So here's some hints. It's not a step-by-step tutorial on how to use Scratch when you're building your plan. Okay, so you should be able to assume that they can open the program. Okay, and then they have some basic understanding. But you need to be very clear with how to use that basic understanding. Okay, so you need to break down the functions. It can't just be one big clump of text. You got to show the step-by-step how to build exactly the same thing as you have produced. Things to include would be to gather images and ensure that they have transparent borders, outline the major functional parts of the game. Okay, you must submit all your final code complete. So this will either be done online, which is preferable, but if there is some accident for some unknown reason, you can submit the SB2 file to me by email or through Schoolbox. The 3 fundamental programming structures, like we just talked about, sequential, selection, and iterative statements, need to be throughout the game. Needs to have a mixture of this. There will always be changes to the design and development phase, and that's fine, but you need to make sure you talk about it in each step. So if there weren't any changes, then you need to discuss why changes and updates weren't required. You may discuss things like XYZ could not be implemented due to technical skills limited, so ABC skills were implemented instead. Okay, make sure you save your work in multiple locations, including online. If you save your work online, make sure you edit where you have a stable internet connection. Online versions are really good, and this is the reason why we prefer this, is it allows your peers to give you feedback useful for Criterion D when you get up to that. So alternatively, students can follow this style of logical plan when constructing their tables. So this is one way. So you would have the step here, description of the task, the resources that you use, the time taken, and then a screenshot here. Okay, so clear description, justification of the plan and design, and then images of the final product. The alternative is this template that I made up as well. So you have the step, the description of the plan that you intend to do, the changes to the plan, and then the changes to the design. So the changes to the design is anything that you've deviated away from in Criterion B, whereas the changes to the plan is anything that you try to do in this step here that you've written, and then gone, oh no, that didn't work, and then you've described how you fixed it. You then state how long the time will take to complete this step, and then any resources that they need. So images of Anna, if that's the character that you're using, and then maybe a screenshot of the code that you're going to be using down the bottom here. Okay, so that's what the template, and then obviously you would copy paste that and do step 2, step 3, and so on. This is really important to make sure that your game works online. When you're using the online editor, if you want anyone to be able to see your game, you must use the share button at the top here. Okay, so make sure you click that in there, and make sure within your Criterion C Word document that you place the link to your game somewhere pretty visible, preferably at the top of the game. Okay, that's just so that we can access it and play it. So that looks like the end of Criterion C. Stay tuned for Criterion D.